Coach Pruitt post-practice availability. Please raise your hands after he gives an opening statement.
How's everybody doing? Well, you are quiet. Interesting day out there today. We probably for me, I'm coming off the field and I'm ticked off, and I don't know if it's because I'm mad the way the whole team practiced or the offense kicked her tail. I ain't figured it out yet, so I got to watch tape and see. But one thing that I did notice out there today, we had a lot of guys that, you had 2 days off and didn't respond the right way, and we got to fix that. There's not enough. We need to be having spring practice every day. I wish we had 30 of them so we could do it, but we only get 15, and I'm not sure everybody took advantage of their opportunities today. So we'll watch the tape and see if that's right or not. Any questions?
Wes and Ron.
Jim, I know you've said that, like a lot of coaches say that the defense should be ahead of the offense right now. Is that why maybe the offense making some big plays today could be alarming? Because normally that's not something that happens early in camp.
Well, no. There's sometimes you get beat because the other guy's better than you, and sometimes you get beat because maybe you don't execute it the right way. If the other team beats us because they're better than us, that's one thing. But when you make mental errors, which we made a lot of mental errors out there today, was not very focused in the meetings, didn't take what we went over in the meetings to the field. So that probably contributed to some of it.
Coach, 4 practices in, you said you were going to get 7 days for some good position switches and take another look at it. Just a couple of those guys, Princeton, Fan, Fields, and me. How have you evaluated those guys?
Well, we'll kind of take the whole body of work. We're still installing, so we'll install for 5 days before we really slow it down. And we'll see after 7 days. We'll try to make a decision if we want to continue to let those guys get ready to scrimmage on the 9th day, or should we go ahead and move them back to their original position. So they're learning both right now.
Mike and then Steve.
Coach, you talked about the orange and white game and the team playing an actual game. How much of that is about development versus the actual competition for positions? I mean, are we at that stage yet where there's cut and dry competition in different spots?
Well, I would say that every day we evaluate all 4 groups. So we don't have any starters. We don't have any, second team guys, third team guys. We have a rep chart. Everything is being evaluated. I think there's only so much pressure that a coach and staff can put on guys to see how they respond in adverse situations. When you go to, when you go to a scrimmage, it's the first time, and I've seen guys that, they may practice really well for, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and then you go to a scrimmage situation, so it's new. Maybe you go from the practice field to the stadium, and maybe they have anxiety, so they don't perform well at the stadium. Or maybe you see guys that, are fine in all the practice situations, but then you go to the stadium and there's 102,000 people in the stadium, and they have anxiety there. They don't respond the right way. Or sometimes you find guys who kind of rise to the occasion. So to me, to create a game-like situation for a team, first of all, I want to see who the competitors are. So that's one of the things we talked about going into spring practice, was figuring out who the guys who love to compete when the game is on the line. So the only way to figure that out is truly put them in a game-like situation and pick sides and let's go. My goal is we're going to treat it just like it's a game for us. We want to prepare and get used to our expectations, because everything's new. What we're doing is absolutely new from what these guys have been accustomed to. So we want to have them ready. I don't want the first time we do it is when we go to Charlotte. So we, as many times as we can, try to get it the way it's going to be the night before a game. That's what we're going to do.
Steve.
Just, I know it's early on in spring, but are there any position groups where you really like what you've seen so far more than others? And are there any position groups that are particular concern to you?
I'd say every group, does some things well at times and then some things poorly at times. That's really the thing you're trying to do is kind of create a standard, be detailed about what we want to get done, and try to get the guys to be able to do it over and over again. Some of our, a lot of our guys are trying to figure out exactly what the standard is. We're improving and they're willing. But we've got to continue to make strides, and we're not good enough to go backwards in a day.
Emily, then Blake.
Coach, sorry. I heard you say also you're going to do scrimmages scrimmages midway through spring practice. I guess just why did you plan to do that, and what are you hoping to learn from those 2 scrimmages?
Well, again, you practice. It's kind of like you go in there and you have meetings. And you go over what you're going to go over. Then you go out to practice and you do walkthroughs. Then you make your individual practice around the things that you're planning on doing that day. Then you have whether it's half line, trade drill, or half line pass, or man-to-man drills. So you kind of take the next step. Then whether it's 7-on-7, and then it kind of works its way into team. So from there. That's practice. There's a little difference when you go out there and the coaches aren't out there on the field with you, and you got to make the calls. You got to get lined up. They're not there to encourage you. They're not there to correct you. You're playing just you 11 guys on one side of the ball. So that in itself is new. So you definitely have to do that. It's kind of like a test. You study or you go to class for a certain period of time, and you get the information. Well, then they test you on it to see what kind of knowledge you've retained. So that's what a scrimmage is. And to me, when you have the orange and white game, that just you add the element when you create a game-like atmosphere. There's a little more excitement, a little more anxiety, a little more pressure, butterflies, whatever you want to call it. And some guys perform better in those situations. Some guys perform worse, and we need to find out who those guys are.
Blake, then Patrick.
Are there any areas of this team or roster that are maybe better or different than what you had evaluated when you were looking at film and kind of evaluating the roster after you got hired?
No, I didn't. When I watched the film when I first got here, I'm just trying to get an idea, first of all, how to kind of go about the recruiting class, to have an idea, can you move guys around? Can other guys play different positions? Because, certain guys that were recruited here might not necessarily fit what I want to do with them, if that makes sense. So, I didn't really look at it as a group. Just kind of looked at it from an individual basis.
Patrick and Jesse.
Jeremy, you guys, who are some of the guys that you guys are looking at that nickel, that star position, and what are you kind of looking for out of that spot in your defense?
Well, we need all of our defensive backs to be able to play more than one position. First of all, it helps them create value in themselves. But now you don't want, if you're going to play 5 defensive backs, you want your 6th best defensive back to be the first guy in the game. Okay, if one of those 5 guys gets hurt. So if your left corner gets hurt, and you got 10 guys, you got a 2 deep. We all have a 2 deep, right? So, and just so happen maybe the guy who's the backup left corner is the 10th best player. It don't make a whole lot of sense to put the 10th best guy in before you put the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th guy in. So we want all of our guys to learn multiple positions, and we teach things by concepts. So we're working a lot of guys there.
Jesse.
Jeremy, it looked like today y'all were doing some of that pass matching scheme stuff in there. How have kind of the installs been, whether in the secondary or defensive front? How's that process gone through 4 practices?
I think the big thing for our guys is the meetings. I think the meetings are a little different than what they're accustomed to, but I do think the guys are trying hard to grasp it. Obviously, it's a different defense, so there's not a lot of familiarity when you cross over. So It's a lot of new concepts, but you know, it's no different than any other place I've been. When you start in the spring and you start installing for the guys, if you have freshmen out there, which everybody's like a freshman because it's the first time they've ever heard it, you know, usually it's the second time through in the second week before they kind of start grasping everything.
And if I just have to follow, who are some of the guys that maybe made a play offensively today that kind of caught your eye or that you were frustrated at that got you on the defense?
Well, you know, when we do a good job protecting, our guys have made some good throws. You know, when we step in the right direction, we get a hat on the hat. We play with good pad level up front. You know, all of our runners are capable of creating some positive plays. So, you know, it's really hard to single anybody out. But usually when everybody's kind of on the same page, good things have happened.
Last couple, Austin, David, Blue in the back.
Jeremy, we're all talking about quarterbacks and linebackers. Talk about your special teams unit in place of a senior punter and a senior place kicker. Where do you feel like you are there?
Well, we're doing a lot of drills right now, a lot of fundamentals, you know, because one thing there's for us to go out there and do a certain amount of teams as far as this is the first team, second team, third team. Heck, we don't even know who the best football players are yet. All right, so we don't know who's going to get on the bus and go to the first game. So for us, we need to teach as many fundamentals as we can, stay with the basics, whether it's, you know, how to protect and punt, whether it's, you know, how to hold up in punt return, how to stack kickoff return, how to press the ball, you know, in the cover game. So we're doing as many things as we can that way. And then as we kind of build after next couple of practices, we'll get into a little more teamwork.
David in the middle.
Jeremy, what did it mean to you to get a key to Rainsville?
Oh, you know what? I have a lot of pride where I'm from, and I think the people in our community do. You know, I was fired up about it and very appreciative. But the big thing that I was fired up about is my old high school team won the state championship. So that in basketball, so that was a big deal to me and a big deal to our community.
In the back. In those kind of situations where you're installing new defenses, new offenses, what are some of the steps that you start to look for as a team to show that they're picking things up and moving along the way that you want them to?
Well, I would say that, you know, offenses create a lot of multiples. You know, when you talk about from the defensive side. So, you know, when they move around, and that's the way, you know, the game is in college. Everybody's going fast, snapping the ball. You get a lot of rocket motions. You get unusual formations. So, and they're snapping the ball fast. So you got to recognize formations, splits, you know, backfield location, whatever it is. So they're creating multiples, and the more multiples you have and the more multiples they have, then it becomes a whole lot of stuff. So the people that can keep their poise, play with confidence, communicate's a big deal. You got to be a good communicator if you want to play good defense, because the first thing is nowadays you got to get lined up, and everybody's got to be on the same page. But, you know, we'll tell a lot more of that. I mean, there may be guys out here right now that, hey, they can make the calls, they can do this, they can do that, but when we roll out there, you know, the first time we scrimmage, you know, they may not can do it. Or when we have the orange and white game, and hopefully we have the crowd that I'm expecting, they may either excel or they may not. So we'll see, but we need to know that.